My guest today is Caroline Fabrigas, CEO of Scent Marketing, a company that creates proprietary scents for hotel chains and retail stores as an integral part of their branding. 10 years ago, Caroline was part of a dynamic duo. She was a cosmetics executive who had worked with beauty brands like Chanel, Lancôme, Estée Lauder. Her husband, Harold, was a visionary who was connecting the use of scent with branding and marketing. When Caroline was suddenly widowed with 2 small children, she found herself at a crossroads to go the safe route with her corporate job or become an entrepreneur, carrying on with the young company her late husband had started. Her story is one of grit, resilience, and the importance of community. Caroline Fabrigas, it is so good to have you as my guest on the latest version. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here and so happy to speak with you again.
Oh, great. Thank you. Tell me about your career in the world of cosmetics and beauty. What were you doing and what was it like?
Oh, I really had such a wonderful career in the beauty industry. I was so lucky. I came over from England and started working at the counter for Estée Lauder. So this was a wonderful place to start, really at the ground floor, learning how to sell cosmetics, learning about what customers were looking for and how they wanted to be served. And I was so fortunate to really grow up through the ranks, going through all the various steps from being a counter manager to being a coordinator for Chanel, coordinating events, being a part of launching Coco, which was one of their fragrances at Saks Fifth Avenue and taking it to the $1 million mark all those years ago.
Wow.
And then moving into education with Lancôme on the West Coast, moving out to San Francisco sight unseen and getting an apartment as a young woman and getting started, and then coming back to New York and working ultimately for Clarins in education and then in marketing, which was such a great opportunity because I didn't have all of the marketing education and credentials, but I think they really appreciated my passion for product and passion for the brand. And it was such a great honor to work at Clarins for all those years, over 12 years, sharing that ethos, that message of love thy customer and beauty by concern. And I was just so lucky to learn so much from so many amazing mentors and really to have a breadth of business experience that has really stood me in good stead for what I ultimately encountered and then ultimately what I'm doing today.
You know, I think of what you're describing as the dream of so many young women wanting to get into the field and really engaging with the products and the customer at that level. And it really does sound like a dream come true. I think a lot of us who have ended up as moms and living in the suburbs of New York started out in those areas and kind of, that dream of the young woman coming to the city and making her way. It really does. It sounds wonderful. You were married to a very interesting man, Harold Vogt. Can you tell me a little bit about him?
He was really a man for all seasons. He was really amazing. He's been passed away since 2010, but it doesn't get any easier. Every day he is greatly missed. I met him when I was at Lancaster Group Worldwide. I was a trainer there, the head of training for international. And I remember arriving in Wiesbaden, Germany for my first international marketing meeting, which was so exciting. And he was working for the agency at the time, which was called Select. And he was so incredibly helpful. And I just thought, well, maybe all of the German community is so helpful as he is. And indeed they were, many of my German colleagues. But he took particular interest and we became really good friends. And ultimately friendship blossomed into love and love into marriage. And he really was the wind beneath my wings. He really helped me to become in my career everything that I became. Mm-hmm. And he spoke 3 languages. He was an advertising executive and a printer by trade. So he was really able to combine this idea of brand communication, and he became a master at scent strips. If you remember in the days of old, there'd be scent strips in magazines.
Sure.
Perfume. He was very expert at knowing how to do that, and he ultimately even transcended that by taking scent from the paper and putting it into the air in an invisible way. He was one of the first people to really figure out how to do that and do it in an artful way. And then, of course, he could communicate that in 3 languages across the globe. He was somebody who could design your logo, sell you a dream, and also run your cash flow. He was quite extraordinary.
So he had linked into this this idea that I think a lot of us, have the experience of opening a bottle of suntan lotion and suddenly you're at the beach, right? Or catching a whiff of, someone's cologne or aftershave and suddenly you're in a different place thinking of someone. So there's this very interesting connection between scent and memory and feelings, emotions. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because that's what your business is based on now. Is that right?
Yes. He, Harold, my late husband, believed in the power of scent as one of the main ways to communicate a brand message, to be able to communicate values and emotions. And he realized that early on, and then he found a way, as I was saying, to diffuse it into the air. And he had this opportunity to actually create a program for Hyatt hotels. So he was able to translate the values of Hyatt Place, what that brand wanted to express, into fragrance. And in fact, that was in 2007, and this program is still in place today. And we've even been given a second Hyatt division. The power of scent is just undeniable in how it makes us feel. It creates desire. It creates perceived value. It creates an emotional tie. As you said, it can inspire memory. It can bring you back to wonderful times, thoughtful times, remind you of people. And it's all because of the connection to the brain. There's actually a great science behind it. In your limbic system, there is a part of your brain that really holds all emotion and memory. And scent is able to get to that area with immediacy. And so that's why when you smell smoke, you don't think, you flee. When you smell baking bread, you get an immediate warm sensation, or maybe even a hunger sensation. Right. So scent is incredibly powerful.
Oh. And I think about the scent of hospitals and how that has a negative connotation as well. I mean, isn't there a way to ameliorate the that negative? It's like, oh, I'm in the hospital again, and all the negative connotations that has with us.
More and more, we are being called to do what we name, it's called odor remediation. Or malodor management. And so as much as we do, a lot of signature scent development and scent brand scenting, we also do this malodor. In fact, sometimes a combination of both is really in order. And it's quite effective. What we aim to do is not only manage the bad odors that can cause stress, or give you maybe a feeling of not being at ease, but we can also put in aromas that give you that clean cue. Oh, I'm in a clean place. Or give you a comforting cue. Oh, I feel at home here. I feel comfortable. It's okay. So we can do either or both. And in fact, more and more we're being called to merge the two disciplines to manage that.
Interesting. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. I wanted to talk about, as I mentioned in my intro to you, there was a moment you had an experience. Your husband passed away very suddenly, and you had children, small children. Can you talk about what that experience was like for you as someone who then was the head of the household, the earner, suddenly the source of income, and what it was like trying to decide what you were going to do next?
Oh, wow. It was quite overwhelming, as one might imagine.
You know what, Caroline? I'm sorry. We're getting, I think, notifications on your computer, and I'm wondering if it's going to really impact the. Is there a
Yeah, Caroline, is there a way
Yeah.
that you could possibly silence those
Silence
your
the
computer or your phone
notifications.
or wherever they're coming in?
I'm happy to do so. I'm not sure where I would go to do that. Would it be in settings, do you know? Or
What are you on a Mac or
yes, I'm on a Mac. I'm on a Mac.
Okay. Who knows the Mac well enough to tell her how to do it? I don't.
Just probably is there a way to turn on Do Not Disturb?
Gosh, I'm unfortunately not very savvy. There's something here called notifications. Okay, hold on. I'm going to see if I can turn this off. When Do Not Disturb is on, it's turned on. I'm actually in the area. Let me see if I can. Sorry to take our time to do this. I wasn't.
You know, this has to. I need to add this to my list of ways to prepare for this because it's. You're not the first one who needs to. You know.
Let me see. Do not disturb. Banners and alerts.
There should be a way to just turn it on. Maybe.
Okay. I just put Do Not Disturb. Will turn off tomorrow. Okay. Let's see if that works.
That should be good.
Let's see if that helps. Sorry.
Okay. Not at all. I hope we can, you know, because we're having a great discussion. I hope we can just, you know, bring you back to where you were before. So you found yourself in a place where, you know, your husband very unexpectedly passes away.
Yes, it even thinking about it now, and it was 11 years ago, it's quite shocking. And for any of you who are listening, you can relate. It was a completely unexpected occurrence, and forgive me if I also am a little emotional, even though it was such a long time ago. It was quite
no worries.
It was quite dramatic. It was a July afternoon. Actually, it was a July morning, 2010, and I was actually called to Manhattan to be interviewed that day by the Cosmetic Executive Women. It was a really wonderful career milestone day for me to be interviewed about my career with that organization. I was on the board. And so I left the house in great spirits. I remember my late husband, saying to me that morning, "Goodbye, beautiful." And I thought, oh, I must look nice today, because he'd usually say goodbye, take care, goodbye, see you later. But he said, "Goodbye, beautiful." Those were actually his last words to me. So I just want to say that, you know, you never know when it's going to be those last words. So I think every word matters. And every morning when you say hello or goodbye, all of those things are very, very important. So the day went on, and I also later that day had a presentation, which was very exciting, to a group of distributors. And it was during that presentation that the call came that my husband had an accident, or he had fallen. We didn't know which, and to go to the hospital. And I tried calling the hospital, but they wouldn't give us any information. And so I, barreled on and found my way over there. And it's the thing you least expect to hear. You think, oh, he must have hurt himself playing squash. Oh, he must have fallen down. Or you think maybe he did have a heart attack, but you never think that, what they'll tell you is, "We're so sorry, we couldn't save your husband." And he was 51 years old. And so it was very, very shocking. And that moment really changed everything for the rest of time. And my immediate reaction was I wanted to see him. And so I did. I went in and I saw him. And it was very important to spend that last period of time with him and to say whatever I wanted to say. You never really actually say goodbye. And then the next order of duty was to, once everything was sort of settled there at the hospital, was to drive home. And then I had to talk to my children, which nobody prepares you for how to do that either. And my dad died, actually. I think I remember telling you that when I was 11. And I remember being at school that day, and it's a Catholic school. The priest took me into the rose garden and told me that my father had passed away. And so maybe it was just a natural instinct when I came home and took my children outside to let them know that their father had passed away, had gone to heaven. They were 6 years old at that time, so it's rather difficult to know exactly what to say.
Mm-hmm.
But something really came over me. What was very important for me and those children that evening was to have a sense of routine and to have a sense of not to have a dramatic experience. So a lot of my friends were actually finding out and heading to my house. And I actually did something very uncharacteristic for me, because I'm very much someone who likes to entertain and have people around. And I basically asked everybody not to come that night. And I wanted to just keep everything as normal, if you would, as possible. We did their baths, we did their dinner. And I distinctly remember making that decision. And I think that was really important to what came next, which was how do you then assimilate what has happened and try to create a level of normalcy for your children, a level of security. I was in a job where I was traveling a lot. I wasn't always home for dinner. I immediately changed that routine. I had to be home for dinner. I had to give them a sense that there was a parent in that house every single day. Other things that were very, very important were the neighborhood here in Scarsdale where I live, the outpouring of people that I didn't even know bringing food. And every night there was something on my porch, people really reaching out and caring. So the support was amazing. And then, accepting that support, being really incredibly grateful for that. And then the school was very supportive, and they led us to a wonderful organization called the Treehouse, which was a terrific place for bereavement and the children to go and be with other children of like age and like loss. So there were a lot of things I think we did early on that were actually very good decisions, because nobody can ever prepare you for something like this.
No.
And then, of course, there was the business piece to it as well. He had a phone. It was a BlackBerry, and the BlackBerry at the time was just ringing off the hook with all these Hyatt hotels that were calling for their oil replenishment. And I didn't even know where to begin. But thankfully, his brother and sister came over from Germany and Switzerland, and they went up into the office and went through the QuickBooks. And then someone else came at the wake and said, "I know what's going on in your garage." It was a garage embrace business at the time. I said, "Well, that's good, because I don't." And and so I hired that gentleman for a couple of days a week to help me, so that I could at that time go back to work. Ultimately, the corporate life sort of took its toll with the travel and the hours, and I decided I needed to take a step back and needed to also settle the affairs of the estate, which wasn't large, but still there was this business that needed to be thought about. And so when I did that and started to understand this business of Scent Marketing Inc., I fell in love head over heels, and I have not stopped falling in love since. And we've built a business that he started with one client who's still so valued to us. And we've built an entire network of hospitality, retail, professional offices, spas, clinics, salons. I just love what we do, because we get to work with all kinds of different people in all sorts of different businesses. And so he left me a gift.
So you had to really learn to become an entrepreneur, as he had been getting this business up and running in a field that I didn't even know existed, really. Because it's one of these things that's invisible. Now, I've walked into hotels and you're like, something's different. I love the way where there is a fragrance that is, or a scent that tells you you're in a different place. But it's not something I think the average consumer is aware of. That there's, so he really had a very, visionary idea of all of this, but you had to take it to the next step. What was that like? You'd been a corporate person, but now you're an entrepreneur.
Yes. Well, it's a very different life. It's certainly not for the faint of heart. I don't think it's for everybody. There have been so many days that I didn't think I would be able to continue. It's so challenging. You often feel very alone, especially as a small company. And that's why the clients that we've had have been so important, because many of those clients have become, very friendly with them. And I think that having those relationships has really been helpful. it's, fortunately, as I grew up through the corporate ranks, I was able to cover a lot of ground. I was given so many wonderful opportunities to work in training and to work in marketing and e-commerce. And I went on Home Shopping Network and sold on television. I had an opportunity to learn the financial side of the business. It's still not my strongest suit, but I learned a lot that I would otherwise not have known. And as women in particular, getting that financial muscle strengthened is so important. So not that I haven't learned a ton more, but at least I had a nice basis to go off of. It has been very challenging. It's taken a very long time to get where we are today. And we've had a tremendous amount of help along the way to get where we are. Obviously, last year in the pandemic was very challenging as well as a growing company with a lot of the hotels closing.
Yes.
But we partnered with our partners, with our customers, and we're all coming through on the other side, holding hands together.
That's great. Do you think about those days as an Estee Lauder counter, person selling directly to, that consumer contact? Do you think about that as a great training ground for working with your clients now and making sure that they're getting the scent that they need to meet their needs?
I think my collective experience has really led me to today. I'm a big believer that, I think there are no coincidences. I think sometimes you don't really know in life why things are happening. And then later on, you're like, oh my gosh, if that didn't happen, I'd never know this. Or if that didn't happen, I'd never be here. And I tend to look at things that way myself. And I think about looking back, I remember a time at Estee Lauder when I was the counter manager. It was very slow in the store. And I dressed up in an evening gown and went around with a bottle of Private Collection and tried to stop people in the aisles. I was one of those annoying people that everyone tries to bypass, but I was in a rather splendid evening gown. And I was doing whatever it took to motivate the business and entertain the client. And I think in what we do today, there's a huge entertainment emotional quotient that I absolutely love. There's nothing that I enjoy more than creating a signature scent for a client, and then it's the sniffing session day. It's like a sniffing party where we actually get to smell these incredible scents that are emblematic of their brand, and to see their faces light up when they smell the one they feel resonates. And we mentioned also during our pre-chat there that I've really gone back to my roots in that during the pandemic, I actually opened up my first Scentfluence aroma design studio in Scarsdale Village. And so I'm right back to my roots, being on the shop floor in the studio and actually being able to meet real live clients who live in my neighborhood and helping them with scent and diffusers and all kinds of wonderful items for their homes and families and gifts and such. So I really get an opportunity to be back at my roots again, and I just love it.
I'm wondering if you think that retail store idea is something you'll be replicating in other communities?
Well, we're going to just about have our year anniversary on October 31st, and it's been a wonderful year, albeit with the pandemic, obviously limiting people's movements. But we've had so much support from the neighborhood. I'm so incredibly thankful to the Scarsdale community here. And we found that there is a lot of interest in what we're doing. The experience in our studio is very different. You can come in and you can actually experience over 65 scents in our library, and you compare those with a variety of different types of diffusers for your home. And then we also have a whole range of incredible scented items that make for great gifts or even personal use. So this seems to be a model that quite a few people have felt was franchisable. So we are actually developing our own Scentfluence products as well, and looking probably down the road to open some additional locations in other places and ultimately possibly even franchise Scentfluence. I think the time of scent and understanding how it influences our lives really has come. I think my late husband was a visionary. He saw the future, and the future really is now, particularly during the pandemic, people losing their sense of smell or being home and realizing how smell becomes the sensory cue for where you are in your day or helping you to manage your emotions. Scent has really become more and more prevalent in how we're living our lives to the fullest.
That's so interesting. You know, the idea that people are home all the time, and maybe you need to, refresh the way your home smells. And maybe it's more than, the cleaning product that needs to change, that maybe there is a way that you can bring a different atmosphere to your home through through a scent product like you have. I'm just curious, do you ever use more than one scent product? Like, do you have something in the morning and then something in the evening to kind of change the atmosphere?
Absolutely. Right on. Yeah. I mean, especially during the pandemic, I don't know about you, being home all day and all night, day after day, week after week, I kind of lost track of time.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even really sometimes know what time it was. And I found myself and many others that I know working so much more because they were working at home, because there weren't the usual sort of delineations of, it's 5 o'clock and the office is closing, or it's lunchtime and people are going out for lunch. You sort of just lose track of time. And so scent has become very important for us as what we call a sensory cue. So whether it's waking the house up in the morning with something citrus and fresh, or whether it is knowing that it is time to wind down at the end of the day and have something that provides a different cue that's more relaxing and more comforting. And then, of course, we've been cooking a lot, all of us in our homes.
Yes,
so
yes.
The cooking smells sometimes are something you might want to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
So there are certain scents that can also help be complementary to what you're cooking while helping to overcome maybe some malodors, as we were discussing before. So scent has become very important as what we would call a sensory cue for your life.
Wow, that's so interesting. I wonder if you can share with us 3 pieces of advice that you have for others who are looking at this kind of life change that comes upon us not of our choosing, and in your journey to being a businesswoman and an entrepreneur.
Yes, I've given that some thought. And one of the things that really comes to mind is, during a time like that, you sort of I did, you feel like retreating, actually. You just feel like going inwards because it's just so overwhelming on so many levels. And I would only say that I actually think it's hard to do, but it really is a time to go out, to be outward. Mm. And one of the things that was so important for me was actually volunteering. I didn't really have a lot of time, extra time, but in the time that I did have, I volunteered my time to help my industry. I was on the board of the Fashion Group International, so spending time to build up fashion and fashion-related industries. I was a new member of the Young Presidents Organization at the time, and I didn't know then how important that organization would be in so many, many ways, so much so that I ended up founding a chapter as I became a little bit older. And what was so important about going out was to be active, was to be connected, was to sometimes just doing something for somebody else kind of shifted the drama, if you would, off of what was happening in my situation. And it made me feel good, and had so much reciprocal benefit, the aid and the support and the help that came, particularly when I was inheriting a family business. Mm-hmm. So having the knowledge of others who had run family businesses very successfully, that was very important for me. And the Young Presidents Organization really, really stood by my side and helped me through that. So I think that's one very important thing. Just when you feel like you want to go inside, maybe finding ways that you can actually go out and to connect. I think another thing that became very evident to me, and it's something I really live by today, is sometimes it's very easy for us when we're in a new and unexpected situation to feel that we don't have all the answers and to feel that we don't really sometimes know what to do. I would say don't underestimate yourself. And don't listen to everything that everybody has to say. Do your own research, make your own decisions, go with your gut, And too often, I think when we're in that situation where things are kind of unstable and we're feeling really uncertain, and we'd kind of like maybe someone else to make a decision, at least that was me, I would only say try to rally against that and try to do your own research, stand on your own 2 feet, make your own decisions, and go with your gut. Because if I had listened to some of the things that I was told, and it was only people just trying to give what they felt was good advice, but it was good advice, but maybe not for my situation. Mm-hmm. I probably wouldn't have held on to my business. I probably wouldn't be where I am today. I probably would have stopped the business and gone back to the corporate life. And actually, in hindsight, this has given me chance to be around and home for my children as they've grown. They're just graduating high school next year. Mm-hmm. It's given me an opportunity to build a business of my own that I own 100%, that has actually a nice value at this point. And it's given me an opportunity to spread my wings in lots of different ways that I wouldn't have otherwise probably had the chance to do. And then I guess the third one would be, what's very important in all of this is you can lose yourself. I think it's really to make sure that you do take care of yourself. You're so busy taking care of everybody else to try to find those things that bring you joy. If it's a cup of tea in the sunlight in a nice cup, or if it's a bath with some of your favorite bath salts, or taking time out to speak to a friend. Whatever it is that, brings you joy, try to find those small moments of joy and try to make that time for yourself, because at the end of the day, you can only give to others when you really are, giving to yourself first.
All great advice. And I'm just so grateful that you were available to share your incredible journey with us, a journey that is, I think, has a long, long way to go and is, really inspiring for a lot of us. I think so many of us, we can't imagine what happens after the death of a spouse, and to hear your story of how you were able to continue on and actually grow and use all of your training from your early days, it brought you along to another place. And it looks like there are just so many things that are open to you now, especially with a possibility of the home market as well as the corporate market. And I think that's so exciting. And I am going to be thinking about scent from now on in a different way and trying to use it to my benefit and maybe the others as well. It's a totally new field. We think about color and sound and things like that being atmospheric, but scent is a new thing, but it's clearly a very important thing. So I appreciate your spending some time with us today on the latest version.
Well, thank you so much. It was my pleasure, and I am so willing to be of help to anybody that is going through similar situations if I can. As I said, it's really important, I think, to put a hand out to help as much as we obviously also, can take a hand to help us as well.
Great. Caroline Fabrigas is CEO of Scent Marketing, and I will have all the resources we've talked about in our show notes, so that anyone who's interested can follow up as well. Thanks a lot, Caroline. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Great. I appreciate you. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.